Hello, everyone. Today we have another edition of GamerGate Interviews, and today we have Balinor with us. Say hi.
Hi everybody, I'm Balinor.
So let's jump right into this. So, how did you get into GamerGate?
Well, with GamerGate, I was watching it since the beginning because I've browsed 4chan for years and I was an avid Kotaku reader. So I was watching it ever since the whole conspiracy thing. I thought that it was just a regular old internet dust-up that wasn't really going to go anywhere. But then I saw all the articles being produced and everything else, and I was like, well, this is getting a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. But I still stayed out. I followed it. I read everything on it. And the initial incident that brought me into Gamergate was Stephen Totillo's article on Brianna Wu, because I smelled something rotten and I knew that there just wasn't something correct about this article. Like, stating that someone feels harassed because of a meme page, that's not good journalism. You're obviously taking the word of someone that is not mentally stable at face value, and that's poor. So I cut all ties with Kotaku and all the other sites that I used to read and joined Gamergate and started bitching about their shitty ass journalism. And here we are, 6 months later since I joined, since I openly declared that I was pro Gamergate.
And
Not much has changed.
yeah, and what are you currently doing within the hashtag, and what do you think of it in the presence?
Well, most of what I do, like, I send some emails every now and again, but I talk to politicians and stuff a lot about it because my family is deeply entrenched with one of the parties here in Canada, so I have a few ties, so I talk to them and make sure that they know that the media blitz is all wrong and just they're trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, basically, when it comes to the online harassment thing. And I do some digging and contributing as well, just as an anon on 8chan.
Okay, so
that's most of what I do.
but what do you think of it in its current form?
In its current form, well, it's trucking along nicely. There's one of the worst things that happens with Gamergate that I see is people jump the gun too quick before information can be truly verified and confirmed. And that's kind of a downfall of what we do, of what a lot of people do. They just all of a sudden, hey, this is correct, but there's many times that it's not. But in its current form, I think it's just fine. I don't see any major issues with it at all.
All right. So in the future, what do you think Gamergate is going to change or morph into?
Well, I think that it's already morphed into what it's going to be, because it's basically a watchdog right now. Like, a lot of what Gamergate set out for in correcting journalism is already happening, but there still needs to be someone watching them, and that certainly seems to be what Gamergate is doing. And obviously there's the fight against censorship, which is always going to be an ongoing fight, and it's always going to stick in the mind. So that's where I feel it's going to go and stay.
And if there's anything you would change or improve upon, what would it be?
The biggest thing I would improve upon is the echo chambery nature that sometimes happens with Gamergate. Like, a lot of times people will read only Gamergate sources, only 8chan or KIA, but that's not a good idea. You need to branch out and read everything, whether you agree with it or not, because that keeps your perspective clear. And hey, sometimes your mind might change slightly because you're reading everything. It's just the way it needs to be. So that's something that I would certainly advise everyone to keep in mind is read everything. Don't let yourself become burdened by an echo chamber. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's true. And the major thing it's doing right. Well, what do you reckon it is?
The major thing is doing right is just by surviving, just by being there. Because, like, you can look at Deep Freeze, which is a major plus in my mind. Deep Freeze is a great, great site. But you can see just how flustered people get that, hey, we don't believe what you're saying, and we think that you're being untruthful. And they're not used to hearing that. Like, all of the main opponents of Gamergate, the anti-Gamergate people, because there certainly are anti-Gamergate people, they're so used to being believed completely and utterly that they can't handle someone saying, well, no, this is not right. And just by surviving, Gamergate puts worry into everybody that is against it.
We did you make something similar, but I didn't work out well with Mukio.com. So you think it's the right direction with deep freeze and trying to kind of have an overview with journalists and how they act?
Yes, most certainly. It's the right direction. And having a dedicated site to it really, really helps. Now, there are some criticisms of Deep Freeze, like the whole having a banner ad there for links to other ethical sites as he's got. I think that should go. I think that it should just be left up to the reader of Deep Freeze to decide upon, hey, I'm not visiting these sites. I don't trust these people anymore. Rather than saying, hey, here's TechRaptor, or here's Christ-Centered Gamer. I think that really needs to go. It's not a positive thing to have.
Yeah, it's not the. It shouldn't be the job of deep freeze to say which site to go to. It's kind of a double standard.
Yeah, it should provide the information and let the reader make their own decision. Because the information is definitely there. But
Yeah, that's
you
true.
need to be able to trust your readers enough that they're going to make the proper choice. You
Do,
don't
do you
shouldn't
think
force it.
Gamergate is going to be more centralized, or do you think it's going to continue the way it's like right now?
I think it's going to continue the way that it's going right now as a decentralized movement. It can't be centralized. It can't have leadership. It can't have any of that. It's just not possible because when you fight the media is going to do everything in their power to fight back, and that's going to involve basically slandering and smearing anyone that's seen as a leader. You can see what happened with people like Christina Summers and Mike Cernovich and everyone else that the journalists and anti-Gamergate people consider as leaders. They get attacked and smeared, and everything goes. They just get ripped apart in the media. So you can't have a centralized leadership. It's impossible.
Yeah, and I think you saw the whole thing with Chris Clue yesterday. What do you think of his whole? Well, it's the whole narrative of anti-GG of them basically saying which is still a hate group and we're getting smaller for those who want actual ethics.
I say that he's full of shit and he doesn't know what he's talking about. The fact is, yes, a lot of the ethics concerns have been solved, as far as I can see. I'm in agreement with Sargon on this one, but the reality is Gamergate is not getting smaller. Yes, by the metrics of the Twitter hashtag, there's less posts going on. There's less posts on 8chan, but the people with the mentality of Gamergate and the bucking back against censorship and unethical media are not going away anytime soon. We all still exist. We haven't just died off. We haven't changed our mind that these things are bad. We might not be as active, and we might not, like, even people that have splintered off completely, people like the A-Team and them, they are still concerned about these things. They just don't agree with Gamergate anymore. But the mentality is still there, right? So we're not going away. We're not disappearing. People need to understand this. Even a downturn in posts and everything else does not mean death. It just means, maybe there's not that much to talk about right now.
Yeah, I mean, currently there hasn't been a lot of happenings as it is, so there's not really not a lot of activity. So there's not really a need to be outraged when there's nothing to be outraged about.
No, well, there's no need to manufacture outrage. We're not like our opponents, the
exactly.
SJWs as they're called. I don't like that term, by the way, but that's what they're known as, so I'll say it. But there's no need to be outraged over every last thing. So
Well, SJW or anti-GG, whatever you wanna.
Yeah, quite true. Either one would describe them quite well.
Yeah, because Gamergate really picked off after the whole honey badger incident.
Yeah, well, the people are still there and can and will act if necessary, but for the most part, there's not much action to be had. Keep sending your emails, keep on the media's ass, and that's about it right now.
Yeah, I think it's just we have to keep out an eye, and I still think that we need to uh, get these corrupt people out of the business completely. What do you think?
Oh, I agree, and one of my main concerns is Gawker, and I want Gawker to burn. I will not say anything else about that. Like, I will not apologize to anyone at Gawker. That site and all of their sister sites have to go. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, not sure how that's gonna happen, but hopefully it's gonna happen.
I think you'd be surprised at how much damage has been done to Gawker by Disrespectful Nod, Baby Seal, and UV. Because I know I put Stephen Totillo on blast there a couple weeks ago, and Jason Schreier as well, and told them straight up that they are losing. And Stephen decided to write a 5,000 word reply to me. They are very butthurt at the moment. They're not in the great shape that they claim to be. Like, as of the end of the year, as of December, we had cost Gawker 7 figures. So anywhere between $1 and $9 million. What you don't realize is a lot of advertisers pulled out after the end of the year because that's when their contracts ran up. Like, if you go to Kotaku, Gawker, Gizmodo, and I think IO9 as well, none of them have ads. There's no top bar ad. There's no sidebar ad. Now, some of the other Gawker sites still do, but they have only the top bar and a sidebar ad that's an autoplay video, which doesn't make as much money as the regular ads do. So they're definitely hurting. Now, they still have things like native advertising, but their readership has gone down by 45% since December. And the graphs, the actual Kotaku Gawker metrics graphs show that. Not Alexa, but their readers and their clicks per journalist. So we're doing more damage than most people think we are.
Yeah, I think we've proven that with a whole advertisers thing and emailing them. And I think the gaming press is terrified if you started doing that to the other sides who haven't really become involved.
Yeah, well, like everyone, I've seen a whole bunch of people saying, "Hey, you got to go after IGN. You got to do this." Well, IGN has really stayed out of the fray on this. They saw where the wind was blowing, and they said, "Nope, not touching it with a 10-foot pole."
Yeah, pretty
Because
much.
they're actual professionals and they're business people. Unlike Kotaku, where Stephen Totillo, while he's a smart man, he's a well-spoken man, he tries to psychoanalyze everybody that he comes across, and he's not capable nor qualified to do it. Like, I assume you've seen the David Jaffe interview that he did, or talk with David Jaffe, where he immediately tries to psychoanalyze David Jaffe, and Jaffe blew up on him, and rightfully fucking so. Right? This is the type of person that Stephen Totillo is. And like, I was reading Kotaku since its inception, basically, and there was a noted downturn in the quality once Stephen Totillo took over as EIC. It just wasn't as good anymore. It became all about outrage and clickbait, even worse than it was before.
Yeah, I've never personally gone to Kotaku, so I never really experienced that whole thing, like getting attached to that site. So I really just stayed away.
Yeah, like I said, I was a very devoted Kotaku reader, and I also read IO9. But I don't read either one of them at all anymore, basically. I'm just like, nope, do not want to touch it because you're full of shit. And, like, another noted thing about Kotaku is their comment section is absolutely ridiculous. You want to see a cult? Go there. Like, holy shit. I remember in late 2013, Patricia Hernandez had posted an article about Sony not having any women on stage and going into the demographics of how many women are CEOs and all this shit in tech. And I went in and I broke down exactly what she was arguing and used her own statistics and said, you're wrong. This is the actual way these statistics should be interpreted. And instantly, the entire set of journalists, because this was a heated article and a heated discussion on the go, the entire set of journalists came in and called me a misogynistic pig for doubting what Patricia Hernandez said. And I didn't say shit all about her gender, because I don't give a fuck. But apparently, just questioning and saying, your statistical analysis is incorrect. Now, I'm someone that's trained in statistics. I know how to do these things. And to be called a misogynist and hateful of women because I disagree with a woman? No, that's not how it works. So I took note of all the journalists, air quote journalists, that jumped in, and I just stopped reading them. The only two that I can remember that did not jump in on it were Schreier and Totillo himself. But the rest of them, yeah, they went after me hard. Now, they're all idiots, so I didn't have much of a hard time deflecting them, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I personally seen the whole corruption for years, so I'm not really surprised that something big came out of this because people were fed up. Because you have seen in the comment section of all videos of reviews and stuff like that, or articles, saying, hey, they didn't pay you enough, that's why you gave it a low score and shit like that.
Yeah, quite true. It's been going on for years, and it's a despicable action, and it should stop. But
yeah, it's just a thing that's become so normal, or even a joke at this point, that people are reading the articles, just say, oh, they're so corrupt, we can't we're just gonna joke about it now because we can't trust them. And if you see the statistics, like 3% of gamers think that the reviews are actually important. That Breitbart wrote.
Yeah, the ESA survey or ESA statistics, the 3% is the most important thing for them. Now, I'll admit, I have never really read reviews, but I used to go to these sites for news. For choosing what video game I'm going to buy next, it's mostly word of mouth or a YouTuber that I go to, because then I can see some actual gameplay, or I'll just start downloading some demos and decide which one I like the best and buy that.
Yeah, I've stopped trusting reviews, so
Yeah,
I personally don't really. I have no need for them. I trust my own gut when it comes to games, and if there's something I see that's bullshit, I'm not gonna buy it.
yeah, it's just they're not really good at what they do at all, and their sophomoric opinions are just completely bonkers most of the time. Like they all claim that they're all for elevating games to an art form, but games are already an art form, but not in the way that they think it is. Like they all say, "Oh, story comes first, and this comes second, the graphics or the artistic style of it." But the art form of games is the gameplay itself, right? That interaction, that feeling that you get from playing a game. It's nothing else. It's not the story. The stories, you can tell a good story with a video game, but that's not the main art form for a video game.
Yeah.
The main art form is the gameplay. It always has been, and it always will be.
Yeah, that's what sets it apart from the other art forms.
Yeah, and that's one of the most frustrating things that you see when a lot of these people that are doing games journalism are BA people, Bachelor of Arts, and they try and use theories that are applied to movies and books to analyze and decide what is on the go with the video game. But they don't hold, because those analytics and those theories, they only look at one specific thing, the story, and games are so much more than just the story.
Yeah.
It's a much, much larger medium than what a book is, for example.
Yeah, because a book won't stop you from progressing after 3 pages.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to be stopped. You have no interaction. It's a story that is being told to you. Whereas a lot of games, there's choices to the story. There's things that you can do that affect the story. So it's a completely different ballgame from what books, movies.
Even stories in games can be done differently, because you can interact with like Mass Effect, where you actually choose the outcome, which you can't do in movies or games or books. I mean,
yeah, the thing is that, like, where was I going with this? Like Deus Ex is one of the most famous examples of choosing your own ending and choosing your own way through the game. And I played Deus Ex when it first came out, and it was absolutely one of my favorite games of all time. And it remains one of my favorite games of all time to this day. I play it every couple years just because I love it so much. And that's one of the first games where you can really see that interesting, hey, I can change the story depending on how I play the game, depending on what I do. And it just spoke to so many people and showed what games can be. Because they're still your throwaway Call of Duties and stuff like that.
yeah.
But there's so many more amazing things that can be done with video games than simply, hey, here's a game, here's a little bit of gameplay, and here's a big overarching story to go along with it. But there's no actual interaction. There's no gameplay to it, aside from very minor press this key, move this way type of thing.
Would you say that GamerGate should be concerned with business practices as well? Move into that, or just concentrate on the ethics alone?
I think that rather than focusing on business practices, like they are a concern, most certainly. A lot of the business practices of large studios and the journalists themselves that are intertwined with them tend to be very bad, or very poor, I should say. And if we fix the ethical concerns, a lot of the concerns with the business and the propping up of these companies and everything else should go away, or at least to an extent. So by all means, if anyone is in GamerGate and is concerned about business practices, be concerned about them, most certainly. But I think that the main ethical issues and going after the gaming journalists will help solve a lot of that.
Okay, so you wouldn't say go after that. We should rather focus mainly on the ethics practices.
I think that we should focus mainly on the narrowest thing that we can focus on for now until that is fixed. Because, like I said earlier, a lot of it has been fixed, but it's not totally fixed yet. Now, I think that the whole SPJ thing can be an eye-opener and can really help with fixing it, but it's not necessarily going to fix it completely. So we just need to keep that in mind and keep focus where we can keep focus too. Right?
All right. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it all. I expected a few questions to come in, but apparently they haven't come in, so I've kind of just talked a little bit. Is there anything you want to touch before we close down this thing?
No, I think that we've had a pretty good conversation and we've touched on a wide variety of topics and it was a good discussion.
All right. Do you want to say where we can find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Balinor41, and you can also find me shitposting on 8chan. I don't use Kotaku in Action, though I read it. And every now and again, you'll see me pop up in a comment section on one of the big websites. I go by multiple handles, so I'm not going to tell you who I am there because I like staying rather anonymous on them.
All right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for coming on, and everyone, if you want to talk to this lovely person, be sure to hit him up on Twitter. Be sure to subscribe if you like this stuff, and yeah, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.